Every day, millions of people handle quarters without giving them a second thought. They get tossed into jars, dropped into vending machines, and forgotten in couch cushions. But what if one ordinary-looking quarter from 1983 could be worth not 25 cents, not $25, but hundreds of thousands of dollars? Imagine discovering that a coin sitting quietly in an old collection, a cash register, or even your pocket change could potentially change your life forever. Today, we're diving into the fascinating story of the 1983 Philadelphia Washington quarter, a coin that has become one of the most intriguing modern American treasures in the world of numismatics. To understand why the 1983 Washington quarter has captured the imagination of collectors, treasure hunters, and everyday Americans alike, we need to travel back to the early 1980s. The United States was facing economic challenges. Inflation had shaken the economy throughout the previous decade, and the U.S. Mint was under immense pressure to produce coins quickly and efficiently. Little did anyone know that this period of mass production and cost-cutting would create one of the most sought-after modern quarters ever minted. The Washington quarter itself has a rich history. First introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the birth of America's first president, the coin was originally intended as a one-year commemorative issue. However, the design proved so popular that it became a permanent fixture of American currency. Featuring the profile of President George Washington on the obverse and the iconic eagle on the reverse, the quarter became one of the most recognizable coins in American history. By 1983, the Philadelphia Mint struck more than 673 million Washington quarters. On the surface, that number suggests rarity should be impossible. After all, how could a coin produced in such enormous quantities ever become valuable? But that's where this story takes a surprising turn. In one of the most unusual decisions in modern U.S. mint history, the government chose not to produce official mint sets in 1982 and 1983. For decades, collectors had relied on these annual mint sets to preserve pristine examples of circulating coins. Suddenly, that safety net disappeared. The vast majority of 1983 quarters entered circulation immediately, where they endured years of wear, scratches, and damage. As a result, finding a perfectly preserved 1983 Philadelphia quarter today is dramatically more difficult than finding many older coins with far lower mintages. It's a fascinating paradox. A coin that millions of Americans spent casually became a rarity simply because hardly anyone saved it. But that's only part of the mystery. Collectors soon noticed that certain 1983 quarters displayed extraordinary characteristics. Some examples featured exceptionally sharp strikes, while others showed unusual die varieties and minting anomalies. As grading standards evolved and more coins were submitted to professional grading services, the realization began to spread that top-grade 1983 Philadelphia quarters were astonishingly scarce. Imagine searching through thousands, perhaps tens of thousands, of quarters and finding almost nothing worthy of the highest grades. That's exactly what happened. Today, examples graded at the highest levels by professional grading services command prices that would have seemed impossible decades ago. In extraordinary condition, with perfect surfaces and exceptional eye appeal, certain examples have sold for thousands of dollars. The mere possibility that undiscovered specimens remain hidden in old collections continues to fuel a nationwide treasure hunt. And then there are the errors. For many collectors, mint errors represent the ultimate prize. A tiny mistake made during production can transform an ordinary coin into a legendary rarity. On some 1983 Washington quarters, experts have identified double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and other fascinating minting anomalies. These errors are tangible reminders that even highly sophisticated manufacturing processes are not immune to human and mechanical imperfection. Consider the odds. A coin produced on an assembly line operating at incredible speed somehow emerges with a tiny flaw. That flaw escapes detection, enters circulation, survives decades of handling, and eventually finds its way into the hands of a collector who recognizes its significance. It's almost like discovering a hidden message from history. One of the reasons the 1983 Washington quarter fascinates collectors is that it challenges our assumptions about rarity itself. We often associate valuable coins with ancient civilizations, gold treasures, or centuries-old artifacts. But here we have a coin that many Americans alive today used during their childhoods. A coin that bought candy, paid parking meters, and rattled around in pockets for decades. This creates a powerful emotional connection. Imagine your parents saving spare change in a glass jar during the 1980s. Imagine inheriting that jar decades later and discovering that among thousands of ordinary coins lies a remarkable specimen worth far more than anyone ever imagined. Stories like these continue to emerge throughout the numismatic community, fueling the dream that hidden treasures still exist in plain sight. But what exactly should collectors look for? The first clue is the mint mark, or rather, the absence of one. In 1983, Philadelphia quarters carried no mint mark at all. Collectors also examine the sharpness of Washington's hair details, the quality of the eagle feathers on the reverse, and the overall preservation of the coin's surfaces. Any unusual characteristics, doubling, or striking errors can significantly increase desirability. Of course, condition remains king. A heavily circulated 1983 quarter is generally worth face value. But a coin preserved in exceptional condition, especially one certified by a professional grading service, enters an entirely different world. The difference between an average specimen and an elite specimen can literally mean the difference between 25 cents and thousands of dollars. And this raises an intriguing question. How many exceptional 1983 Philadelphia quarters are still waiting to be discovered? Are they hidden inside forgotten coin albums? Sitting unnoticed in inherited collections? Buried in jars of spare change stored in attics and basements across America? Nobody knows for certain. That's precisely what makes this coin so captivating. Unlike famous treasures locked away in museums, the hunt for valuable modern coins remains open to everyone. You don't need to be an archaeologist, a millionaire investor, or a professional treasure hunter. Sometimes, all you need is curiosity, patience, and a willingness to look more closely at the ordinary objects surrounding you. The story of the 1983 P. Washington quarter reminds us that value often hides where we least expect it. It teaches us that history isn't always buried underground or displayed behind glass cases. Sometimes, history circulates quietly through our hands for decades before revealing its true significance. So the next time you receive change at a store, open an old coin collection, or discover a forgotten jar of quarters in the back of a closet, pause for a moment. Take a closer look, because somewhere out there, another extraordinary 1983 Philadelphia Washington quarter may still be waiting to be found. And perhaps the greatest mystery of all is this. What if that next incredible discovery is already sitting in your home, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to recognize its true worth? There are coins in America that most people spend without a second thought. They jingle in cup holders, disappear into vending machines, and get tossed into jars on kitchen counters. But what if one of those ordinary-looking coins could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? What if a single quarter from 1990 struck at the Denver Mint was hiding a secret that only a handful of collectors have ever recognized? Today, we're diving into the fascinating story of the 1990 Washington quarter, a coin that millions of Americans have held in their hands, yet few have ever truly understood. At first glance, the 1990 Washington quarter appears completely ordinary. It features the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse, designed by sculptor John Flanagan, and the iconic eagle on the reverse that Americans had known for generations. It was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark, and entered circulation during a time when the United States was undergoing enormous change. The year was 1990. The Cold War was ending. Technology was beginning to reshape the world. And inside the United States Mint facility in Denver, Colorado, millions upon millions of quarters were being produced to satisfy the nation's endless demand for pocket change. In fact, the Denver Mint struck more than 927 million Washington quarters in 1990. That number alone tells us something remarkable. Nearly 1 billion of these coins entered circulation. By every traditional definition, the 1990 D quarter should be common. It should be ordinary. It should be worth exactly 25 cents. And yet, for a select few collectors, this seemingly mundane coin has become the center of a treasure hunt that continues to this day. To understand why, we have to go back much further than 1990. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. What began as a one-year commemorative issue quickly became one of America's most beloved circulating coins. Through wars, economic crises, cultural revolutions, and technological transformations, the Washington quarter remained a constant presence in American life. By 1990, the design had already survived nearly 6 decades. Americans no longer looked closely at their quarters. They simply spent them. And that's exactly what makes certain rare examples so extraordinary. You see, in the world of coin collecting, rarity isn't always about low production numbers. Sometimes, rarity emerges from mistakes, tiny errors, manufacturing anomalies, accidents that escaped the watchful eyes of mint employees and entered circulation unnoticed. For the 1990 Washington quarter, several unusual varieties and high-grade specimens have captured the attention of collectors and treasure hunters alike. One of the most fascinating aspects of this coin involves the pursuit of perfect examples. Since nearly 1 billion were produced, finding a circulated 1990 quarter is easy. Finding one in absolutely pristine condition is another matter entirely. Think about it. Almost every quarter struck in 1990 entered commerce immediately. They were dropped into cash registers, carried in pockets, scratched against keys, and worn down through decades of use. Very few survived in perfect condition. And in the collecting world, perfection changes everything. Professional grading services have identified only a tiny number of 1990 quarters that achieved the highest possible grades. These coins, displaying virtually flawless surfaces, razor-sharp strikes, and exceptional eye appeal, have sold for astonishing sums compared to their face value. Imagine finding a quarter worth 25 cents and discovering that collectors are willing to pay hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars because it survived 35 years without acquiring even the smallest imperfection. But the story becomes even more intriguing when we examine mint errors. Throughout the history of American coinage, mint errors have fascinated collectors because they represent something that should never have happened. Double strikes, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and dramatic die errors transform ordinary coins into historical accidents. Some collectors spend decades searching through bank rolls and pocket change, hoping to uncover one of these hidden treasures. Could a rare 1990 quarter still be circulating today? The answer, surprisingly, is yes. Every year, stories emerge of collectors discovering valuable error coins in the most ordinary places. A forgotten piggy bank, a cash register drawer, a jar of spare change sitting untouched in a garage for decades. And that possibility fuels one of the greatest treasure hunts in American numismatics. But there's another reason why the 1990 Washington quarter remains so captivating. It represents the end of an era. When these quarters were struck, nobody knew that the traditional Washington reverse design was approaching a historic transformation. Less than a decade later, the United States would launch the State Quarters Program, forever changing American coin collecting. The simple eagle reverse that Americans had known since 1932 would eventually disappear from circulation, replaced by designs celebrating individual states and territories. In hindsight, the 1990 quarter became one of the final chapters of a classic American coinage tradition. That historical significance adds a layer of nostalgia that collectors deeply appreciate. And perhaps that's what makes coin collecting so powerful. A coin is never just metal. It's a witness to history. The 1990 quarter may have purchased a cup of coffee during the Gulf War era. It may have traveled across all 50 states. It may have sat in a child's piggy bank while the internet revolution transformed the world. Every scratch tells a story. Every preserved example represents a small miracle of survival. Yet perhaps the greatest mystery surrounding the 1990 Washington quarter isn't its value or rarity. It's the question that keeps collectors awake at night. How many extraordinary examples remain undiscovered? Somewhere in America, there could be a pristine specimen hidden inside an old coin collection inherited from a grandparent. There could be a rare mint error waiting inside a forgotten bankroll. There could be a quarter worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars sitting unnoticed in someone's pocket right now. And that's the magic of coin collecting. Unlike buried treasure hidden beneath oceans or locked inside ancient tombs, numismatic treasures can still appear in everyday life. They can emerge from a cash transaction, a family heirloom, or a dusty jar tucked away in an attic. The next time you receive change, pause for a moment. Look carefully. Check the date. Find the mint mark. Because while most 1990 Washington quarters will always be worth 25 cents, history has taught us something remarkable. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight. And perhaps, just perhaps, one of those treasures is waiting for you to discover it. What if I told you that a quarter sitting in your pocket right now could send millions of people scrambling through their spare change? It sounds impossible. After all, we're talking about a coin worth just 25 cents. But in recent years, one modern American coin has sparked countless online rumors, treasure-hunting frenzies, and wild claims of extraordinary value. The 2016 Washington quarter. Some videos and social media posts have suggested that certain examples could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, with figures as high as $916,000 being thrown around. But is there any truth behind these astonishing claims? And why has an ordinary-looking quarter become the center of such extraordinary fascination? To answer that question, we have to travel back through more than 2 centuries of American history. The story of the Washington quarter began long before 2016. The quarter-dollar denomination has been part of American currency since the earliest days of the United States. But the iconic portrait of George Washington that Americans recognize today first appeared in 1932, commemorating the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth. What began as a one-year commemorative issue eventually became one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. For decades, billions of Washington quarters passed through American hands. They bought meals, fueled road trips, and disappeared into piggy banks and vending machines. Most people never gave them a second thought. Yet every so often, a tiny mistake, a rare variety, or a unique historical circumstance transformed an ordinary coin into a coveted treasure. Fast forward to 2016. The United States Mint was in the middle of one of its most successful coin programs ever created, the America the Beautiful Quarters program. This ambitious series, launched in 2010, celebrated national parks and historic sites across every state and U.S. territory. In 2016 alone, 5 different quarter designs were issued, each telling a unique story about America's natural beauty and cultural heritage. The Philadelphia Mint, identified by the small P mint mark, struck hundreds of millions of these quarters. Among them were designs honoring Shawnee National Forest in Illinois, Cumberland Gap National Historical Park, Harpers Ferry National Historical Park, Theodore Roosevelt National Park, and Fort Moultrie. At first glance, there was nothing unusual about these coins. They were modern quarters produced in enormous quantities using advanced minting technology. They entered circulation by the millions, jingling in cash registers and disappearing into pockets across the country. So why are collectors and treasure hunters still searching through rolls of 2016 quarters today? The answer lies in one of the most fascinating aspects of coin collecting: the hunt. Throughout history, certain coins have become legendary because of minting errors. A doubled image, an off-center strike, a missing design element, a dramatic decrec. Sometimes, a tiny mistake made during production can transform a common coin into a collector's dream. And that's exactly what treasure hunters hoped to find among the mountains of 2016 quarters. Over the years, collectors have discovered various error coins from the 2016 quarter series. Some displayed off-center strikes. Others exhibited die chips, cut errors, or unusual doubling effects. While most of these errors are worth modest premiums, a few exceptional examples have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on their rarity, condition, and visual appeal. But here's where the mystery deepens. The internet has a way of turning possibility into legend. A single report of a rare error coin can spread across social media in hours. One headline claiming a coin sold for thousands can quickly evolve into rumors of 6-figure values. Before long, millions of people begin checking their pockets, hoping they've stumbled upon a hidden fortune. The 2016 Washington quarter became one of those coins. Claims began circulating that certain examples were worth astronomical amounts, including figures approaching $1 million. Videos attracted millions of views. Online forums exploded with speculation. People emptied jars of spare change and searched through bank rolls late into the night. But what do professional numismatists actually say? The truth is both less sensational and, in some ways, even more fascinating. A standard 2016 Washington quarter in circulated condition remains worth its face value, 25 cents. Even uncirculated examples are generally worth only a modest premium. The extraordinary values often mentioned online are not associated with ordinary coins but would require an exceptionally rare mint error, a unique provenance, or circumstances so unusual that they border on the legendary. Yet this reality doesn't diminish the excitement. Because the real story isn't simply about money. It's about the possibility. It's about the idea that somewhere, hidden among billions of ordinary objects, there could still be something extraordinary waiting to be discovered. Think about that for a moment. Every day, people walk past history without realizing it. They spend coins without examining them. They empty pockets without looking twice. And occasionally, against staggering odds, someone discovers a rarity that changes everything they thought they knew. That's why coin collecting remains one of the world's greatest treasure hunts. A child searching through grandpa's coin jar. A collector opening a fresh bank roll. A cashier noticing an unusual detail. These moments connect us to a tradition that spans centuries, linking modern treasure hunters to the explorers, historians, and collectors who came before them. The 2016 Washington quarter may not routinely sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it represents something arguably more valuable: the enduring human fascination with hidden treasure. Because every coin tells a story of the nation that created it, a story of the hands that carried it, a story of the collectors who searched for it, and perhaps most importantly, a story of possibility itself. So the next time you receive a quarter in change, pause for just a moment. Turn it over. Look closely. Ask yourself a simple question. What if? Because somewhere out there, another collector is asking that exact same question. And sometimes, history's greatest discoveries begin with 25 cents and a little curiosity. Have you ever found an unusual coin in your pocket change? And if you had a jar filled with old quarters sitting in your house right now, would you check it after hearing this story? Let us know, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories from the fascinating world of coins, hidden treasures, and the hunt for history itself. The year was 2017, and millions of Americans were carrying the same coin in their pockets without giving it a second glance. It was spent on coffee, dropped into vending machines, and forgotten in couch cushions. But what if one of those ordinary-looking quarters was hiding a secret value of hundreds of thousands of dollars? What if the humble 2017 Washington quarter in your spare change could be worth as much as a luxury home? Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating modern coin stories in America. A story involving history, hidden errors, passionate collectors, and a surprising discovery that transformed an everyday quarter into a numismatic sensation. At first glance, the 2017 Washington quarter doesn't look special. It features the familiar portrait of George Washington that Americans have known for generations. But behind this ordinary appearance lies a remarkable chapter in the ongoing story of American coinage, one that has captured the imagination of treasure hunters and collectors across the country. To understand why this coin matters, we need to travel back nearly a century. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. What began as a temporary commemorative coin became one of the longest-running and most recognizable coin series in United States history. Fast forward to 2017, and the United States Mint was producing quarters as part of the Popular America the Beautiful Quarters program. This ambitious series, which ran from 2010 through 2021, celebrated national parks and historic sites from every state and territory. The Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark, struck hundreds of millions of these quarters. But here's where the story becomes interesting. In the world of coin collecting, rarity doesn't always come from age. Sometimes, The most valuable coins are modern pieces that contain unusual errors, unexpected variations, or mysterious production anomalies. And that's exactly what happened with certain 2017 D Washington quarters. Collectors began noticing something unusual. Some 2017 D quarters exhibited striking errors and die varieties that transformed ordinary 25-cent pieces into objects of intense fascination. Suddenly, people who had never looked twice at their pocket change started examining every quarter they received. One of the most famous discoveries involved dramatic minting errors, including double dies, off-center strikes, and other production anomalies. These mistakes occurred during the manufacturing process at the Denver Mint, creating coins that were never intended to exist. Think about that for a moment. A coin designed to be perfectly identical to millions of others accidentally becomes unique because of a split-second mechanical error. In that instant, an ordinary quarter can transform from spare change into a collector's dream. Now, you may have heard claims about a 2017 D Washington quarter selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars, with figures reaching as high as $917,000 circulating online. These stories have spread rapidly across social media and video platforms, creating excitement and inspiring countless treasure hunts. But here's the truth that makes this story even more fascinating. As of today, there is no verified public auction record of a standard 2017 D Washington quarter selling for $917,000. The highest values associated with modern quarters generally involve extremely rare mint errors, exceptional condition specimens, or unique varieties that are virtually impossible to duplicate. Does that mean the search isn't worth it? Absolutely not, because history has repeatedly shown that extraordinary discoveries can happen in the most ordinary places. Throughout American numismatic history, valuable error coins have been discovered in circulation, hidden in piggy banks, and overlooked in collections for years. Consider the psychology behind this phenomenon. Every time you receive change at a grocery store or gas station, there's a tiny possibility that you're holding something remarkable. That possibility, however small, fuels one of humanity's oldest instincts: the hunt for hidden treasure. The 2017 America the Beautiful Quarter series itself carries historical significance beyond its collector value. The designs released that year celebrated extraordinary American locations, including Effigy Mounds National Monument in Iowa, Frederick Douglass National Historic Site in Washington, D.C., Ozark National Scenic Riverways in Missouri, Ellis Island in New Jersey, and George Rogers Clark National Historical Park in Indiana. Each of these coins tells a story about American history, culture, and identity. Every quarter represents not just monetary value, but a miniature work of art carried through the hands of millions of people. Yet for collectors, condition is everything. A quarter that has circulated for years may only be worth its face value, while an identical coin preserved in perfect mint condition can command significantly higher prices. Professional grading services evaluate coins based on their preservation, strike quality, and overall appearance, assigning grades that can dramatically affect market value. And then there are the errors. Imagine a coin being struck twice, producing a ghostly double image. Imagine a quarter whose design is shifted dramatically off-center. Imagine a minting process malfunctioning for only a few moments, creating a handful of coins that were never supposed to exist. These accidents become historical artifacts, preserving a brief moment when perfection failed. Some collectors spend decades searching for these anomalies. Others discover them by accident. Perhaps that's what makes coin collecting so addictive. Unlike traditional treasure hunting, where maps and legends guide the search, modern numismatics transforms everyday life into a potential adventure. Your treasure chest isn't buried on a remote island. It's sitting in your pocket. And the 2017 D Washington quarter represents this possibility perfectly. Millions were produced. Most are worth exactly 25 cents. But somewhere among those millions, there may exist examples with extraordinary characteristics waiting to be discovered by someone observant enough to notice. So how do you know if your 2017 D quarter deserves a closer look? Examine the mint mark. Study the lettering. Look for unusual doubling, off-center strikes, missing elements, or anything that appears different from a normal quarter. Check the coin's condition. Preserve anything unusual. And if you believe you've found something special, consult a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service. Because history teaches us an important lesson. Extraordinary discoveries often begin with ordinary objects. The next time someone hands you a quarter in change, will you spend it without thinking? Or will you pause for just a moment and wonder, could this be the coin that everyone else overlooked? Could this small piece of metal, carried through countless hands and forgotten by millions, hold a story worth telling? Perhaps that's the real value of the 2017 D Washington quarter. Not merely in dollars and cents, but in the excitement of possibility, the thrill of discovery, and the timeless human dream that treasure may still be hiding in plain sight. And who knows? The next great coin discovery in American history might already be sitting quietly in someone's pocket, waiting for the right person to notice it.